Sì, ma appena detto. Beh. So good morning. At the SFSCon 2001, this is the Saturday. So we are now in the community and education track. Welcome. We have this morning we have 7 talks where we hear about community and education. So each talk will be about 15 minutes, including question and answers. So if there are questions from the audience, here is the microphone. And if the questions are coming online, so just write in the chat below, and we will see these questions. Please make sure to do your questions one a minute, 1.5 minutes before, so we have the time to forward them to the speaker. And now we do welcome our first speaker. His name is Andreas Christianel, and he is from the Linux user group Bolzano, and he's also a contributor in the School Swap project. So this project is about a sustainable PC for learning during COVID lockdown. So welcome, Andreas.
Thank you. Welcome to School Swap, a sustainable PC for learning during COVID lockdown. My name is Andreas Christianel. I'm working as an IT technician in Bolzano. I'm member and part of the board of the Linux user group Bolzano, LUGBZ, an association caring about free and open source software in South Tyrol. This year we celebrated our 20th anniversary. I took part of the School Swap project in the last 1.5 years and followed with interest the development of this project. How it started? In December 2019, COVID-19 was discovered in China. By the end of February 2020, things started going really bad in Italy. On March 2020, the Italian government decided to close the schools for 10 days. Students had to do their homework at home and send it through the internet to their teachers. But the problem was not every family had a PC at their home. With the idea of Anton Auer and members of the LUGBZ, a group was founded. We started a call to local press that people should donate their old PC, and we will organize it to bring it to the students. Collaboration. The first to support us in the logistics was ADA, an association working for the rights of elderly people, originated from a labor union. With their buses used to transport people from A to B, we delivered hardware equipment donated from people, private companies and public entities to families needing PCs in South Tyrol. Schools and students contacted us through email asking for PCs and laptops. Things started at a fast pace, and by the end of the school year, many PCs has been placed. Other initiatives from the youth service Jugenddienst Bozen, which had a similar idea but with a non-open source mindset, joined our project later on. The hardware, let's have a look at the hardware of the devices which we received. A typical old PC was about 5 to 8 years old, equipped with a slow HDD, 2 to 4 GB RAM, Windows 7, a 19-inch monitor, mouse and keyboard. We received way more PCs than laptops. On the software side, the Italian school districts in South Tyrol for the last 15 years used FUS, a Debian-based distribution on the desktops of the children. It has many applications pre-installed for student learning purposes. In the beginning, we also installed Ubuntu and Linux Mint. FUS with the desktop environment XFCE was ideal for PCs with not much memory. And the project manager Paolo Dongili, one of the co-founders of the LUGBZ, supported us. The organization. In the first month, we organized ourselves through the messenger Telegram. Later on, with a bridge to Element, internal mails and files stored on Nextcloud. Every PC labeled with a number, for example, FUS PC 42A to 42B, so that you could identify the hardware and its donor. The person requesting a PC had to fill out a form that should use the PC only for learning purposes and could have it as long as needed, but then bring it back to us. additional software. In the German school district, Microsoft Windows and Office 365 is in use. Software like Zoom, in that time I never heard of before, was used from teachers and students, but also Google Meet and Microsoft Teams. Free software like Jitsi and Big Blue Button became a big alternative. With FUS Plus, a new distribution with some proprietary application has been introduced for the purpose of homeschooling. From FUS PC to SchoolSwap, through the summer, students of the University of Bolzano invented a new name and a logo. SchoolSwap was born. It was clear for us that we would continue by the beginning with the new school year. On the website, we included an online form with questions like the size of the family, the number of students, and how many computers they were using. With this information, we had a ranking system to help those families first, who were in more difficult situations. With the acceptance of the German and Italian school responsible, we sent out flyers to every school in South Tyrol. We received about 1,000 requests from all families over the territory. This was a huge success, but the organization behind it were still mainly 3 to 4 people. Status quo. PCs were collected using private cars or buses from the youth service Bozen. The PCs were upgraded at the home of members of the LUK-BZ. The installation of FUS wasn't an easy process. I'll describe it here. You had to have a boot stick with Clonezilla and a second stick with the image files. As soon as a PC was ready, I contacted Anton Auer so that he could give me a phone number of a person searching for a PC and schedule a meeting. This was very time-consuming for me while still having a full-time job. Ada Labo, with the help of Diego Maniaco and the Ada Labo team, in September last year, we could make a laboratory in the basement of the building of ADA. So we had a central place at Bolzano where computers could be delivered, cleaned, upgraded to FUS, and where people could go. A central server with the virtualization software Proxmox and Clonezilla server made it much easier to install FUS without using pen drives. And with the PXE boot option, the image could be installed over the local network. This central place, where you can see the pictures, at Bolzano with the new technical organizations made a huge difference. Meanwhile, our plans for decentralizing the project were not that successful. From September to December 2020, we received about 1,000 requests with very sensitive informations. With WebDAV and CardDAV, we had a database of the entries, but only one person had access and managed it with Thunderbird extension on his local PC. That soon became a bottleneck. People got angry because they waited too long, and the LUK-BZ board, taking the responsibility, was losing overview on how many PCs have been delivered. Ticketing system and new website, with the help of Marco Marinello, current president of the LUK-BZ and computer science student at UniBZ, a ticketing system called OS Ticket, an open source customer support software, was introduced. Every member signed a privacy agreement to handle the sensible data with care. Our clients now had a ticket number and every computer had a task number. Communication was transparent for all participants. This was a big step for collaboration in this project. A new website with the help of students of the UniBZ was built. The youth service Bozen and a student of the Zelig Film School produced a 30-second long video which will show you later, so that the local press would get more attention to our project. Purchases and donations. We also got money donations. We partnered with Südtiroler Vinzenzgemeinschaft San Vincenzo for incoming donations to their bank account. With some big sponsors, we reached about €5,000. With that, we were able to purchase webcams, Wi-Fi sticks, SSDs on local shops. And we could pay ADA some part of the heating costs for the basement during the winter. In 2021, the school was finally over. In the summer, vaccine program started. Since September 2021, the school in Italy seems to go quite normal. As of today, the School Swap project donated 300 and more PCs to people in difficult situations. For me personally, it was very interesting seeing that kids who had no experience with Linux on the desktop could use the computer every day as their personal tool, without prejudices and with enthusiasms in their eyes. Money should not be a problem when it comes to education. In the future, our project is still very alive, and actually our shelves are filled with computers. Whoever is in need may request a PC at our website. Not only students are welcome, but also immigrants or elderly people with tech problems. I'd like to thank a few Anton Auer for bringing people and associations together, Diego Maniaco for his relentless technical work at Ada Labo, Ezio Manostero and Piero Cemin for helping Diego, Danilo Tomasini, Mauro Frattucello, Zeffe, and more others from ADA for actively supporting us. Paolo Dongili for his work at the FUS Linux distribution, Marco Marinello for believing in the project, Hugo Leiter, Franz Linter from Brixen combining Repair Café with SchoolSwap, Michael Blotecker for collecting PCs in Innsbruck and bringing them by train to South Tyrol, Michael Dogler from Jugenddienst Bozen, Corinna Zamir Lorenzi, Markus Ecker, Reinhold Beskoller for purchasing and his company Kubus, Magdalena Amon from Vinzenzgemeinschaft, Karl Lunger and many more. Last but not least, I would like to show you the SchoolSwap video with English subtitles.
Einen alten Computer zu Hause rumstehen und weiß nicht wohin damit? Dann bring ihn doch zu uns. Wir sind das Projekt SchoolSwap und möbeln alte Computer auf, um sie anschließend wieder an Bedürftige zu verteilen. Cool, was? Ja, einfach so, weil auch wir in dieser schwierigen Zeit unseren Beitrag leisten möchten. Wer uns mit finanziellen Spenden unterstützen möchte, findet alle Infos auf schoolswap.bz.it.
Okay. If you have some questions, I will be happy to try and give you an answer.
Okay, very good. Thank you for the talk. Are there any questions from the audience? No questions so far. I have a quick question.
Yes.
So, do you have any feedback on how the users felt using the new environment? Because in general, they would used to be Windows. So, do you have any feedback on that?
On the Italian school district, it was easy for the people because they already knew SchoolSwap from their Italian school, but from the German school, it was a bit harder to learn.
Because they use Microsoft there, so it's kind of this barrier.
They used to have Microsoft Windows, and what you're used to learn, you makes a big difference.
So it's good to know something else as well. Very good. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we have 4.5 minutes for the next talk. So we stop here and then see you soon. Thank you. Welcome back. So our next speaker is Dajamir Hoja. He's a freelancer and he's talking about a virtual computer lab for remote collaboration in a virtual classroom. So this would be about sharing desktops and being watched by the teacher and help. So welcome, Dajamir.
So my name is Dajamir Hoja and I'm a computer engineer from Albania. And during the pandemic, it was important to collaborate remotely, especially for the classrooms and for the teachers. And if the school already have some computer labs, they are physical on a local area network. And if it happens that they have also a server with a public IP, then they can install Guacamole in this server and connect Guacamole to these LANs. And the students can access from a web browser the Guacamole, and from Guacamole each of these computers. But having a public IP is not always the case, or it is not always possible for all the schools. Okay, this is the page of Guacamole. You can learn more about it at this address. So if you don't have a public IP, then you can do a setup like this. You can install a Guacamole server in VPS on the cloud. And of course, you have a public IP there. But now you need to connect with the local area networks of the schools and connect to it securely. And you can achieve this by building VPN tunnels. So the students, again, connect through a HTTPS connection from a browser to the Guacamole, and then through the VPN tunnel, they can access each of these computers on the labs. Again, these computers are physical, so there is not much virtual thing about it. If you even don't have these computers, then you can do something like this, set up everything on the cloud. So in this case, everything is a virtual container on the cloud. The Guacamole server is inside the Docker container, and also the computers that the students can access are installed inside Docker containers. And this is also a virtual LAN. And this is what I call a virtual computer lab, and this is what I've built during the time of pandemic. And for more details, you can also look at this address, at this URL address. Now, let's see a demo about a virtual computer lab, how it works. I've recorded my screencast. So this is the web browser. Now we log in as a teacher. It is the web browser, but it is a full screen. And now this is the Linux inside the container, but it looks like a real one, only that you are accessing it from a web browser. Now, in another tab, I log in as a student, student 1. Give username and password again for student 1. This is the desktop of student 1. Now, the teacher can see the desktop of student 1 in Epoptus. Now log in as another student, student 2. This is the desktop of the second student, and in Epoptus, the teacher again can see that the second student is connected. Now log in as the third student. So all these logins are done from a web browser. The students don't have to install anything special on their computer. Now all the 3 students are displayed in the Epoptus, and the teacher is going to broadcast the screen to each of the students. He selects them and selects broadcast screen. And now we will see that in the top of each student, they just see the desktop of the teacher. Let's say that the teacher is demonstrating something to them, how to do something. So in all the tabs, it is the same desktop, the desktop of the teacher. The teacher is writing something, for example, and all the students see what the teacher is doing. Now we will stop the broadcasting by clicking this button. And the desktop of each student is different. It is its own desktop. Now let's suppose that the teacher wants to help this student. It selects it and then clicks on this button. And now it is taking control of the desktop of the student, so that the teacher can work on the desktop of the student. Both the teacher and the student can work at the same time on the desktop of the student. So they are working simultaneously on the same desktop. Stop helping the student by closing the window. And let's say that the teacher wants to lock the screen of this student. Now it is locked. The student cannot use his desktop. To unlock, click this button. Select the desktop of the student and click Unlock. Now, the teacher can also log out the student, select the desktop of the student, and click Log Out. And we see that the student was disconnected. And another way for collaboration is by sharing the desktop. The students can share the desktop with other students. Here, they share for collaboration. For example, they give this URL to the other person, and then they can work. The other person types this URL in a web browser, and then he can access the desktop of the other user or the other student. So they can work at the same time on the same desktop. This is the second student, and okay, the demo is finished. And so another setup for remote collaboration is if each student and the teacher works from his laptop, but or from his computer, but they are connected in a virtual LAN using a VPN. In this case, I'm using WireGuard as a VPN. So as long as they are in the same LAN, be it virtual or real LAN, they can install a pop test, and the teacher can see what the students are doing and can help them, and so on. And this is the presentation. Feel free to ask any questions. And in these locations, in these URLs, there are more details about the scenarios for remote collaboration that I've described in this presentation.
Dajamir. Are there any questions from the audience? No questions so far. May I ask which kind of infrastructure do you need behind this? So in terms of power or performance?
Infrastructure. I've installed it on cloud, on a VPS on the cloud, with VPS of 16 gigabyte RAM. I think it can hold, I have not tried it, but it can hold about 20-30 students without problem. And a VPS of 16 gigabyte RAM, you can find it even for 16 euros, or even less, maybe. There are providers that have cheap offers.
Mm-hmm. So it's enough for one classroom?
Yeah, it is enough for one classroom, yes.
And
I think.
for more classes you would need to set up different servers? So you're fine.
You don't have to set up different servers, because in case that the different classes do not access the server at the same time. For example, at one time, one class is accessing the server, and at another time, another class is accessing the server. You don't need to build different servers. It is like a virtual computer lab is like a computer lab. If you have a computer lab, then the students of different classes have to use it at different times.
So the contemporary users.
Yes, yeah. One class uses it for 1 or 2 hours, and then the next class can use it for 1 or 2 hours, and so on.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for your talk. And we have now 3 minutes plus 5. It's 8 minutes till the next talk. See you then. Thank you. So, welcome to the next track. Our next speaker is Aleix Paul Gonzalez. He's the president of KDAV, a non-profit organization which represents the community, the KDE community in legal and financial matters. And his talk is about make a living with KDE. So what steps are we taking so that people can stay in the community on the longer run? Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. So let me briefly introduce myself. My name, like he said, is Aleix. I've been developing and collaborating with the KDE community for the last 15 years or so. And for the, last many right now, I've been in the KDE board lately as the president. But my involvement in the first place was as a software engineer, and I've been working on many of the products over the years. I am from Barcelona, and when I'm gonna talk to you today a little bit, it's gonna be a bit brief, so if you have questions, we can probably take them later. I'll be around for the day, so if you want to have conversations, that's fine. I know it's a quite open topic, especially if we try to extrapolate it into the different communities, but I am well aware that it's a problem that we as a whole community, we are struggling with. How do we put value into people so that, we can have our own people, funded to do the work that we care about, because there's a lot of people who are using our software, and we need to make sure that that they are supported to do this kind of work. Now, it's a bit cut, but this is the logo of our 25th birthday that happened this year. I am bringing this up not so that you give us the happy birthday, which is always welcome, of course, but also because we're a very old community. We've been around for 25 years. Actually, I even feel a bit of an imposter saying we have been, because I wasn't when Matthias started. I was in middle school back then, right? But this means that we have gathered a lot of experience, and well, where we are today is both what reality has shown us, but as well the experience that we've gathered over the years. When the KDV started, there was, the people who started it decided that development wouldn't be paid for, while they set up the KDV organization to be able to gather funds to support the community's work. A little bit their understanding was that it was maybe risky to put some people into a paid position development, whereas the rest were working on it for free because they believed in the cause, and this could cause some discomfort, right? But on the other hand, we, as an organization as well as a community, we do have a set of goals. We want to be able to further our products, make sure that people make the best use of it, and also, like I was saying, making sure that people get to stay around and they just don't have to actually move on into other places to work to because of financial reasons, because we all know that we need to do something for a living. Otherwise, society doesn't welcome us that much anymore. The first step we took in this direction was to hire 2 marketing contractors. We'd had someone hired before, but they were the first that were hired to integrate within the community. So what we did say in this regard was, okay, we're not going to start paying for development per se directly. We, as an organization, what we do is put resources so that the community gets to do their work and do it in the best of conditions. And we know that we have a lot of software developers who get to do their stuff, and they do it very well. But then it's always very frustrating to tell people, you shouldn't be focusing that much on working on those cool features you really like, because you should be thinking more about blogging, about telling the world why your product matters, which is something actually that it's very important to do when you're in such a competing market like you are, right? So a bit as means to help our developer base, we said, this is something that it's harder to do, and actually it's distracting for the people. Like, if you have people who actually want to work on our software, you don't want to tell them just stop doing that and start selling it more to the public, which would be useful, but then it's not what they're good at, and it's also not what they want to do, right? And this started this big difference, because in this regard, also promo used to be done by non-profit, by contributors in their own time. And at some point they started, but we did it also, we tried to do it in a way so that they also fostered that community. And actually right now the promotion team around them is probably bigger than when they started, because also having people paid and to be able to pull the car helps you make sure that people can just jump in and do the different things they might like to do. Like, for example, we have these release videos. People like to work on them. They get to do it on their free time, and they don't have to think about the big vision about our communication. They get to work on the video. They will get to work on a campaign, and there are some people who are helping them. It's a bit of a challenge because there is the risk, and it has happened in very small occasions, that people get a bit jealous, or they feel like they just don't have enough power because they're not that person who is in that position. But then, we need to work on it, because people also need to get used to people being paid within the community. And for what it's worth, there's been people paid in our community since day zero. Like, there's been people paid by different companies, working in development, just not by the KDV, right? So it's not like it's all that much out of the blue. It's just something that happened that way. And this brings us as an opportunity, right? Like, it's a way for the organization to provide a certain level of structure that is gonna allow developers to do better what they do, which I feel like it's highly encouraging and engaging. Now, through the years, and especially because we at some point got a few very sizable donations that we needed to make use of in a sensitive manner, we decided to start this process, which began as a thought process mostly about the make a living, which goes through the how do we make sure that this money we can spend it in ways that will stay relevant over time and will make our community better, right? Because of course we could spend it on any of the things that we might need at any point in life, but like it can also be easily random, right? Like we could pay someone to add this button in this applet, but is this really what is going to matter in the next few years? So we had this whole thought process about, like a lot of people were saying, okay, let's, for example, try to apply to more grants. So it would mean hiring someone who tries to see if we apply to grants and then making sure that our people get to be hired. Would that be a good way of going about it? Well, maybe yes, maybe no. You can disagree. Our conclusion was that probably not. Some people also said, all right, if you're not going to hire, you can also help people fundraise themselves, like having their own Patreon or GoFundMe or whatever people might want to use. It's a whole discussion, and I know that every free software organization has had some kind of discussion on the topic. Our conclusion also was kind of no. So what we decided to end up doing was hiring or starting the process to hire 3 strategic positions, one for hardware support. A bit the context there is that we have a few hardware partnerships that are working reasonably well. We want to be able to support them and further that towards making more products based on our free software. I think that it's hardware products are a very good way for KDE to have a one-to-one relationship with our users without having to go through weird middleman situations that don't really help much the discussion. The hardware actually process is ongoing right now, so if you really wanted that position, you could still send your CV or your consultancy CV because it's a project, yeah. And we could still consider it. We will start 2 new processes soon, one for apps. So there the idea is to help our application products to advertise themselves in the different application stores, both within Linux and beyond. So a little bit Google Play, Windows, and actually trying to see to which extent we can make it so people get to pay for it, right? Especially if we have our software in a proprietary app store. It does make more sense for KDE to say, all right, then at least become part of the solution through the donation that would come from it, or the payment in practice, right? Then a third position will be putting someone to work on what we call base platform of our software, whatever that means. It's something that we need to define a little bit more when the day comes, but in practice what it means is we have a lot of software that is shared across our products, but as well beyond our products, and we having people work on that also helps our community to be freed, much like on the Premo case, or actually the other 2, to work on what they actually want, right? Like you don't want your application developers to be worrying that this kernel driver is not working that well. You want to be able to still put the products forward, and if you can have someone take care of the kinks of the different kind of products, you can do that with apps. A little bit the same, and best platform. So some ideas that you could take home on how you could help us. And when I say us, actually, I imagine that other communities would be quite similar that way. The obvious one is using free and open source software, telling your partners to, when you put together a conference, you give your speakers a Linux computer. This is something that should be normal. And actually, it also can start conversations about the requirements that the different projects might have, right? And also, when you're at that position, talking to the developers, seeing why I think so. As consumers, because we live in a consumer-centric society, we're very used to things just working, and when they don't work, we get frustrated and sad. Instead of we talk to the people who create the thing and actually try to fix it. And actually, a lot of people feel like this sadness that they feel and the anger that they might feel when something doesn't work is actually helping the issues get fixed. But it's very important to remember that first, free software communities are super open in this regard, and you can always talk to them. And if you talk to them in a constructive manner, you can get your problem solved, which is a huge, huge, huge advantage that you will not ever be able to get from many of the closed source companies and products. So this is related to that point. We need to be fostering these communities, having communities work together, create products together, and also, when we talk to people, reminding everyone that free software is not about being for free. It's about, working in the open. The fact that it's for free, it's something that happens, and actually it's something that we're all proud of, but we need to find ways collectively to make sure that we're all properly funded. And this way, we wouldn't have to have the president of KDE after 25 years coming to a conference and saying, we need to find ways of making sure that our software is properly funded, right? Coordinating the different kind of people is also very important. Like, for example, in KDE, we have, I would even say, far too many developers. And probably, for example, the FSFE has far too many lawyers, right? How do we find ways so that, we all have everything we need when the FSFE finds a problem in software, do they have ways to articulate that problem into a solved solution? When we have a legal problem, do we have all the knowledge we need to get out of, whatever problem that was? Well, this is something that, we need to work on, and we need to know that we're close together. A good way of working on these kind of things is doing product collaborations, meaning you're after this goal, I am after this goal, let's go in this direction together. And actually, like, given how open our communities are, we are doing far too little of it. It's very hard, and it shouldn't be, really. So what's next? What's next is to make sure that these people get to make a living in our community, in all of the communities around us, like, I don't know, GNOME, Libreoffice, all of them, they should be able to do their task, because I am sure that actually it's something that society needs. Our society is relying very much on free software, and the way to make this happen is to make sure that people get to stay around, that they don't just finish university and get hired by, our competition in practice for what for them is not that much money, and then we need to actually just start training other people suddenly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alish. We're a bit over time, but I think we can have a short question if there is any. No question so far. How big is your core team, if I may ask?
Well, that's part of
That's
the
a
thing.
very difficult question, I think.
If you ask me how many people or people and contractors are under our payroll, at the moment I think we're at 7. We are, like, if we counted everyone that we also are planning to hire over time, we're going to be at around 10 or 12. Like, if we had finished all of the hiring processes, which is, by the way, a lot of work, especially if you have to do it on your free time. I am the president of KDE in my free time. In my paid time, I am a software developer. I actually am lucky enough to be able to develop KDE software in my paid time, and actually that's a whole thing already, right? But then, is that the core team? Yeah, probably not, right? Because there's people who are super senior in our community that are also paid elsewhere, paid for, that, or they are just that good that they get to stay around and work with us on their own free time. Counting that is so subjective. I'm not going to even venture to give a number. I know that we have, like, developers in the thousands, monthly developers probably in the hundreds, right? And well, they're all very super welcome.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. Very glad to hear. KDE is my preferred desktop, so I'm very happy to hear it. Yeah, very good. Okay. All right, thank you, Alish. So we have about 2.5 minutes to the next talk. Thank you very much. See you. So hello, at the next track, our next speaker is Marina Latini. She's connected online. We see her here. She's a maintain and release coordination engineer at SUSE Software Solutions Germany. And she's talking about OpenSUSE Leap 15.3 and how community and enterprise are cooperating. So the changes in development flow to lower the contribution barrier. So welcome, Marina. Stage is yours.
So thanks a lot for hosting me also this year. I really hope to see you all in person next year. But first of all, let me say thanks to the organizers, because really you are doing a great job. It's really a pleasure to be here, even if virtually. So thanks everyone for joining. And as you just heard from the introduction, today I want to try to show what is happening behind the scenes and between this world that is a mix of companies and community with interactions that needs to flow in the proper way for making everyone happy and everyone having fun while contributing to an open source project like OpenSUSE. So quickly on the agenda, I will tell you what is LEAP, because it's mentioned and probably not all the attendees are aware of what is this project. Then I will tell you a bit about maintenance and what is happening, what was happening, and what will happen next with this so-called jump next, etc. So about me, I'm working at SUSE as a maintenance release coordination engineer. So this one, it's why I would like to introduce you to this interesting aspect of what is going on when you have an open source operating system that is made available to everyone, community, customers, etc. So OpenSUSE Leap. OpenSUSE Leap, it's that project, that distribution that tries to create a kind of bridge between the community and the OpenSUSE community in particular, and the enterprise area that is SUSE Linux Enterprise. And this distribution has a release cycle of about 12 months. And when we have a new release, the work is still going on. We have contributors working for making the updates available, for making new software available to the distributions, to the users, for introducing, for example, also new software or new feature on existing software. And this is where the tricky part is starting to happen, and it's exactly what I'm doing on let's say on a daily basis with my maintenance activity. It's not just me, of course. It's a team. It's a group. There are a lot of people working across several teams for making this possible. So. About maintenance, just for giving you a really quick summary, it's something that is not happening just in 1 minute. I said that Leap has 12 months support, but life cycle, let's say. But the real support for customers that are using the enterprise side can reach also 13 years of support. And for achieving this goal, you need to have, of course, security updates, other bug fixes, and you can't introduce what we call technically regression or changes that could really completely revert or change what is the expected behavior of a software. And for achieving this, the software developer, the maintainers of a software, are also doing a great job in what we call the backport. So taking the new feature, the new fixes that are needed also for older product, working in a version of the software that can be also, as I was mentioning at the beginning, 13 years old. And this is definitely something not trivial. And it's also something that involves a lot of testing, a lot of preparation for making it possible to release a new update of this particular software, of the particular operating system that can work as expected without bringing surprises to the final user or the final customer. So for giving you an example, this is less or more the complex workflow that's behind this process. And if you want to have the details at this URL, you can see the full process described. But in general, as I said at the beginning, Leap, it's something that bridges between community and enterprise, because it's exactly this. It's not just a product, an operating system done by SUSE and made available to the community. It's a synergy between community and enterprise, because both can work together for creating the new updates, the new version of this operating system, and for being sure that all the contributions that are coming from the community and also from the enterprise side are working well together. We need to make some steps, checking, for example, who is the person that is submitting this particular update, because usually we want to be sure that the change introduced it's something that is planned, is expected. So in that case, if the submitter is the maintainer, there's no problem. If the submitter is not the maintainer, in that case, the maintainer will do also an extra review, verifying that this new change introduced by someone else from the company or someone else from the community is working as expected, is not introducing surprises, and everything can flow. So we have of course, some tests to be done before releasing it. We are creating what is called the maintenance incident, where we are putting together the changes, the previous version, and we are trying to test everything for being sure that the new update won't break things, because this one is the main issue. And when everything is fine, when everything is approved, while doing just running a distribution update, the users, the customers will get the new update available. So for the final user, the process is completely transparent. There's an update. You can check if the system is showing you that there are other updates available, and that's all. But this process that I was describing, it's what is happening behind the hood. And as you can also understand, it's not trivial to merge together things that are coming from the community and things that are coming from the enterprise side. And this is what, with the new version of LEAP, LEAP 15.3, we introduced those new changes that made possible to bring those two parts closer together. So this process was not something done in a few minutes. The first step, the first approach was called closing the leap gap, also making jokes on the concept of leap and distance between those two parts. And the point is that before LEAP 15.3, there were several differences between what was available on the enterprise side and what was available on the community side. So the goal of this first approach was to make everything closer, reducing the differences between the two, let's say, flavors of this distribution, and also to make available more tools for the community for making their contribution easier and definitely funnier. And last but not least, there was also the idea to make possible to migrate from one side to the other in a easier way. So on the link that you can find here on the slides, you can also have more details about this project. And this is not all, was the initial part. And then with LEAP 15.3, we had finally the very first enterprise distribution, because LEAP, it's now it's really the enterprise distribution. close together with what was before the different experience made available from OpenSUSE Leap, let's say 15.2 and older. So now we have the content that the internal content that is reaching directly the OpenSUSE side. It's also possible to start those so-called submissions for having those updates from OpenSUSE. And probably someone could ask, so why you are not developing directly everything in public? And the main reason is that we have some security certifications that are forbidding us to do that. But the process, it's in any case bringing to the final users all the benefit of something that has also an enterprise mindset in the development. So this is what we have now. And the next, so Leap 15.3, that is still evolving, it's still under support, and the future version. This gap that I was mentioning should also reduce even more the differences that we currently have with what is called the package hub. And really quickly, Package Hub, it's another kind of hybrid place where the developers, where the maintainers could make available the software, and this software can come from the SUSE side, so the enterprise version, but also from the community. And this Package Hub, it's, as the name says, a hub where everything it's available, and a user can enable this extra repository, having all those softwares that are just there, ready to be used. For making this experience also smooth, there's the process. It's also making possible to do these vendor changes, so-called, between OpenSUSE and SUSE. So without having the user asked to confirm this change, because it's expected, it's what we want, it's safe. And together with this, there's a developer community, and also there's also the chance to use these binaries that are available for both the OpenSUSE side and the Linux, SUSE Linux Enterprise side. So sources and binaries are available to everyone. It's a long journey, but it's something that we can definitely do together, always keeping in mind that the synergy between companies and projects, it's really crucial. We need to try to keep always in mind this, and try to improve on, let's say, a daily basis. So let's do it together, and that it's definitely what I want to tell you about those changes.
All right, thank you, Marina. So,
Thanks.
Are there any questions? Yeah, please, here's the microphone.
Yeah, okay. What do you think is the role from the people who are actually creating the software that you ship? The role in that workflow you showed that was fairly complex, that only seemed to involve, well, the OpenSUSE community and the SUSE distro packaging. Like, what do the actual people who are creating the products, where do they fit in your vision?
I was showing just the maintenance part of the process, but the reality is that before there's the phase where all the release engineers are creating, are shaping the next version of the distribution that is also reflected in the service pack for the SUSE side and the minor releases for LIP. So that workflow, it's really focused on a specific time frame. But the point is that it's not just OpenSUSE. We have a KDE available on OpenSUSE, so there's the interaction with the community. We have a LibreOffice, of course, available, so that there is interaction with the community. The flow should keep in mind that we are not in our own small silos, but that we should cooperate all together. And doesn't matter if someone is from OpenSUSE, someone else from another company, or from another complete different project. The goal should be the same: to produce something that can that can bring improvements, benefits, and I think that in general the cooperation, it's what we should always keep in mind. And yeah, I think that also remembering what you were saying before, we need to make in general, the open source projects also sustainable, and the companies can play a role in this because they can put employees working on a paid base. But then we also need to keep in mind that there are contributors, volunteers that have different needs, different way to contribute, and these entry barriers should always go low and not up.
Okay, thank you very much, Marina. So we close here. We have 1 minute left till the next talk, so let's stop here and switch to the next speaker. Hello again. So next speaker is Italo Vignoli. He's one of the founding members of the Document Foundation, and currently is doing as well the marketing for Document Foundation. And today he's speaking about LibreOffice and how to improving the project sustainability. Welcome, Italo.
Thank you. So I'm going to cover the topic about educating users to improve the project sustainability. The issue is that a lot of people is using free open source software, but not in an educated way. They see the free concept, so gratis, or without license cost, but they don't understand that behind there is a lot of work and to sustain the project. It is necessary also to pay something. So if we look at the number of users of LibreOffice, we estimate around 210 million users, 50% using only LibreOffice, 50% using LibreOffice and another free Office suite. Just to give you an idea of the number of downloads, we are well over 300 million downloads since we started. Downloads that can be counted, for instance, Linux downloads are usually from repositories, so are not counted, and then we have all the downloads from app stores, that cannot be counted, and which are a rather large number or an increasing number. In terms of market size, it is important to see that after a decrease between 2010 and 2016-17, the market of Office Suite is growing again. At the time, there was a discussion about Office Suite being useless because everything was in the cloud. But then people realized, for instance, that to edit a 700-page document, if you do that in the cloud, it's almost impossible, and even if for shorter documents. So we, going back to the model that we used when we started the project, LibreOffice came from the OpenOffice project. So we wanted to avoid the same issue we had with OpenOffice, that was to have only one company behind the project. And the fact was that at the end, the company was taking most of the decision on top of the community. We wanted to have a good balance between the community and the companies that are working on the software. And therefore, we decided to have an independent foundation. There were no foundation with this model behind it. So we decided to have an independent foundation that was governing the project, but the development was done by volunteers and by companies of the ecosystem. So, of course, the companies have employ developers, volunteers are volunteers, and we wanted to have a good balance between them. We probably have achieved a rather good balance, although probably we should increase the number of developments done by developers paid by companies. If you look at the numbers now, we have 68% of code is done by developers paid by companies, around 28% done by volunteers, 4% is done by people working inside the Document Foundation. So the Document Foundation has a small staff of 10 people. So there are these 10 people do 4% of the commits. If we look at the donation, 90% is coming from individuals and small and medium businesses. No donation comes from large business. And this would be okay if large business were paying for development, patch development, bug solving, feature development, or whatever, integration. But the problem is that only 5% of our large users are paying for that. For instance, the Ministry of Defense in Italy is using LibreOffice on 100,000 desktops, and 60,000 of them are on a long-term supported version. They pay for it. So that is correct, because they pay for the strategic ones. They don't pay for the, let's say, occasional use or less strategic use. But there are other organizations that are using LibreOffice on 100,000 desktops and are not buying anything. They're not paying for solving bugs, but then they are complaining when there is a bug. They are not paying to develop feature, but then they complain if a feature is missing. And this, unfortunately, is something that doesn't work. Open source has to work if there is a good community behind it, and large companies can be part of the community. They have their role in the community if they understand that we need their contributions, and of course, as they have a lot of money, usually, and they save a lot of money by not implementing Microsoft Office, some of that money should go to the LibreOffice project. In some way, we offer different opportunities. So this is our announcement, but I just want to show you this slide with a chart. When we announced we wanted to relaunch the innovation, OpenOffice there was the risk of being abandoned because we know that Oracle didn't want to manage the product. And what happened, unfortunately, with IBM was a very sad story about with Apache OpenOffice. After 11 years, we think that LibreOffice has achieved the objective of relaunching the innovation. If you look at the product today, it's completely different from what we had in 2010. Compatibility with the Microsoft Office non-standard format is a lot better. The improvement of ODF is a lot better. So ODF as a format is a lot stronger. We have a number of features that were not even thinkable in 2010 and today are a reality. So we can say that we have achieved the objective of creating an independent open source project with a foundation backing the project, with ecosystem companies. But unfortunately, we didn't get to the right balance. And so we have started last year a project to educate people. We don't want to change license. You know that there are open source projects that have changed the license to avoid the large deployments of their software. Redis Labs, Elasticsearch. They've gone proprietary. We don't want to go proprietary. We want to stay loyal to the free open source software license. We have chosen a weak copyleft license because, in our opinion, that is what gives us the best flexibility to have companies that contribute, to integrate with, in some cases, with proprietary software, but keeping the LibreOffice part always free. So we see only a possibility is that educating people. And we have started on our assets that are being recognized, being a large project, being respected as a large project. And we also have, this represents our community today, if you want. This is an asset. The fact that we have a community which is made by volunteers and companies, ecosystem companies, the fact that there is a large overlapping of activities between volunteers and ecosystem companies. There are volunteers contributing also to what ecosystem companies are doing, but ecosystem companies contributing in some cases as volunteers to the activity of the foundation. So the organization is okay. What is not okay is this one. So we should grow the ecosystem portion of the contribution, not decreasing, of course, the volunteer one, because the ecosystem brings in money. And bringing in money means that we will have a better LibreOffice in 10 years, probably with increasingly good compatibility, probably with better on every different platform. Today we are on the desktop, on the mobile, on the cloud, and also, for instance, on Chrome OS. The product is not always the name LibreOffice, but is based on what we call LibreOffice technology, and we will get to that in a second. So we think that the unique selling proposition of LibreOffice today is that it's the best open source Office suite, has a strong community behind, and a strong ecosystem. Provides the only standard document format. And this is very important to remember. ODF is the only real open document format. So it's the only one that protects or gives user the sovereignty on what the user is creating. And also has a very good compatibility with the proprietary formats. So it provides the best of open source and also with all the added value that enterprises need in some cases. We will use the LibreOffice technology brand, as I said. What is LibreOffice technology? If you think that when we launched in 2010, LibreOffice was just a desktop product. Today is an engine to develop application on different platforms. The engine is always the same. I will show you a visual that makes it easier to understand. So on top you see the integration of LibreOffice. You have a common productivity engine. It's always the same. If it is on mobile, on the cloud, on the desktop, on Chrome OS, the engine is always the same. Some feature may not be enabled, but the engine is the same. This means that the format of the documents you are creating is always the same. If you create a document on a desktop and open on Collabora mobile on an Android phone, is exactly identical. If you use Collabora to edit that document and save it as ODF, it will be identical as if the document was saved by a desktop version of LibreOffice. This is not happening with any of the other Office suite. They have a different engine for each platform. So they have an engine for the desktop, an engine for mobile, an engine for the cloud, which means that they have a different format, and believe me, make the test. A different format for the different files on different platforms. If you open a file created by Microsoft Office Mobile, it will be different from the document you create on the desktop. Of course, it can be visually the same, but the XML is different, which means that when you parse the XML, the effort made by the engine is going to be different, and at the end, you will have compatibility issue. So, which are the users today of LibreOffice? The community that supports the project with donations, and the enterprises that do not support LibreOffice. Some do, some do not. We have also a version of LibreOffice that we use the family name LibreOffice Enterprise. It's not a product. Is just a family name, is the name for a version that is enterprise supported. And to make this more visible, we have created a business web page on our website. We have tweaked the download web page just by adding the blue banner on top. We have multiplied by 10 the number of downloads by enterprises. And then we have a LinkedIn page, LibreOffice Enterprise. So this allows us to make it, is the education that we are talking about, and of course it's not just these 3 websites, but it's a lot of the activities we will implement over the next years. Thank you for listening, and if you have questions, I think we still have some time.
Actually, the timer is over. Thank you, Italo, sorry. Is there a quick question? Okay, no question so far. So thank you very much. And now we have 4 minutes for the next talk. Thank you very much. So we say hello to our next speaker. He's Daniele Scasciafratte. He's involved in the Italian Linux Society and in Mozilla Italia and many other projects. So he's talking about contributing to an open source the right way. Welcome, Daniele.
Perfect. Thank you. So the idea for this book was to create something that is helpful for newcomers, but also for experienced contributors, because I got often this kind of requests because of my experience in various communities and projects. So let's start. This kind of my curriculum, as I can say in open source, explain that I am involved in various open source projects. I am most famous for my Mozilla involvement and also outside Italy, and also in the WordPress community. I am core contributor. I was also one of the co-organizers of 2 different meetups in Italy, and also part of Italian Linux Society with a Linux user group that I founded a few years ago, and I'm also part of the council of the association. And this kind of a way to explain that I have a bit of experience in various roles, but also in various communities and tools, whatever. Okay, so the first step that I suggest to someone that wants to start contributing or improving what they are doing is always start thinking about your personal open source experience, what you learn, in this case, as skills, as an example. Usually are those ones that also you want to achieve. Improving English, public speaking, marketing, event organization, learn how to work in a group, coaching, planning, community management, but also knowledge. Knowledge is very important because in open source you learn a lot. So you can learn new technologies, new approaches to similar tasks, identify users, or to do reports, but also goals or achievement that you can get in open source, because usually you get gratification, but also recognition by other people, because all these skills that you learn in open source are easy to get transferred also for your work. This is my personal experience, as I never joined the university, so I started working after finishing the school. So everything I learned and that was achieved, to me was easy to achieve, was because of my open source experience. So the next question that I suggest to everyone is to remember why you want to contribute, or are you contribute to open source. And usually to me is, as I said, I want to learn. With this kind of algorithm that I wrote, it's just everything that you want to learn, followed by a needs or a problem, with the time, it helps you to do better what you want to achieve, because it's something that you need. So are you improving, but also putting best of you in this task, as an example. So, as open source is built by people, you need to communicate with people. And I am a developer, so maybe I am not the best one to communicate. So I need to get a bit improved on communicate better. Also maybe speak better English, as an example. So these are some kind of rules that I learned during the years, also reading books about these. And just because we don't have so much time to see everything, I just can say that the most important to me in this list is to be proactive, because in open source, usually you get people that is ranting on social everywhere that something is broken, is not working. This is not helpful to open source, because we say it is built by people, and people need help to do what they want to do. So you need to be open and also giving help to someone that can help you on what do you need. And also to be very clear, because you have no idea about who is reading what you write. So you don't know background, experience, etc. And these are some kind of hints that I suggest in every communication that you usually do, chat, forum, email, whatever. And as I said, there are different tools. I'm not talking about products or services. I'm just talking about tools, because in open source it's quite common also to use proprietary stuff for these kind of things, because in this case it's not important for an open source project what is the tool, but to have the tool to do it. So in this case are tickets. There are various definitions based on the platform, email, chat, forum, and public speaking. You need to achieve to use these tools because it's important for whatever are your needs. But also, this technique helped me a lot to improve what I'm writing in open source, but also explaining the things to my customers, as an example, in my daily job. So the Fanma technique is quite very simple. You need to pick a topic that you want to learn. So it's something that you are interested in. Trying to explain to a kid, like 5 years old. Next step is identify your issues in your explanation, go back, recheck what you did, simplify, and use analogies. As an example, in the log version of this talk is full of video games, memes, just to explain that it's kind of like a game. So in this way, you can simplify a lot what we are saying very easily. And so after a while, it's just normal. Use this way also to improve your slides. And also, someone that as developer I hate a lot, documentation. Documentation is very boring, frustrating, time-consuming, but there's a lot of benefits in the long run. As an example, is creating an archive of what you did, but also improve the brand. One of the most reasons why open source consumers and developers use open source projects, usually in the Stack Overflow service, these kind of things, is just because there is a good documentation. But this documentation is not just how to install it, but also understand how it's built, how it works, etc. So documentation is helpful in the long run about everything you need, and also for the brand of your project. This is the most difficult question that, as an example, I got this morning by mail. So, which project contribute to? How I can decide what is the best fit to do the first project to me? Well, to me, it's important to understand that if you want to contribute, it's not just to put something in your resumes, like in Oktoberfest. but also to have something that you like because you need to put yourself in what you are doing, or otherwise you don't appreciate the open source project or what you did. And at the end, you don't learn how works open source. So the experience, to me, makes the difference in any open source stuff. Can be a little project, can be a community, can be whatever. So, and the good part is meritocracy, because in open source it's very common to get a thank you as an example. It's very nice, but often during your work you don't get these kind of things. But in open source you can get kind of easily. So the recognition, meritocracy, and satisfaction is very important because it's motivating you to do always the best that you can do. And this is part, I don't have the time to explain. Cialdini wrote various books about persuasion. This is the best infographic that explains the various points that you can use in your communication to improve and understand what is the best way to get, as an example, this person or this kind of job, whatever, to get the best for your interest. In this case, promote the open source project that I am developing, as an example. Reciprocity, commitment, social proof, scarcity, authority, and liking. So I invite you to check these books because they are very easy to understand also for a developer. So this is also part, as I said, I am a developer, so I don't know anything about marketing. And this is important also to understand that you need a bit of marketing to promote or help newcomers to your project. And usually these are the questions that I do also on myself to understand how can I improve the reaching of people to my projects. As an example, understand what are the best tools, what the people is asking, why the people are using your project. Maybe they're using for a different reason why you started, and so on. But the next step is also asking to your contributors why, because they are the first customers of your project. And as in marketing, you need to understand why they are contributing or using it. So just asking, because we are talking about open source, so people is interested to give you your feedback. Just you need to ask. And usually in the book is written better, there is also an informal interview. Usually at conferences, I talk with people. Talk with people is the best part to me of the conferences, so you get a lot of feedback that can improve about stuff that you never know. So an informal interview also to specific volunteers is also a good practice. I saw as an example in Mozilla, they pick some volunteers and do like an hour interview about something. So, in the end, I divided the different kind of activities in an open source project in various areas. The first one as the most common. You see, reviewing, localization, support, testing, promotion, advocacy, events. And I divided again in two different parts, direct and impact. Direct are these kind of activities that has an effect in the community, in the project, right now. So you see the effect now. Impact, you don't have some good way to have metrics to see how much is the effect of this. As an example, in support, it's quite easy. I reply to a support request in a forum. I don't know how many people will read it and will be helped about this. But this is part, and they are important. The point is that the first level, compared to the second one, are the most easy one because they don't need a lot of experience. You can get the experience doing it. So for a lot of people, it's more easy to follow also this order, to become on the second level of activities that are documentation, community management, and development. Usually, this is the workflow from a new volunteer to join in a project, starting in this way. And at the end of the slides, I had added also in the book different things because this is the second edition of the book. And it is free and open source, of course. On my website, GitHub, you can download whatever. I don't care. That's the point. And I added these kind of things. Improve your time organization because it's important when you have a life and you have a job doing completely different things, you need to have balance. Also, how to do documentation by these kind of activities that we saw earlier, but also public speaking tips, mentor tips when you have to help a new volunteers, usually questions, and book resources. The book is filled about books that I suggest to write about various things, but also a lot of links to get deep in a lot of different things, because this kind of book is by my experience. So I mixed different kind of things, from coaching that is used in enterprise companies, there is marketing used by a lot of things, consumer practices, because after all, an open source project is talking with customers that are users, and you need to use some techniques to get better. So at the end, the book is on my website. I'm working on the 3rd edition. I am gathering ideas, feedback. I am reachable everywhere. Just put all the social, because so anyone can find me without issues. And I am getting this period a lot of feedbacks on my Italian podcast. It's kind of incredible about open source, but yes, I saw that the book now at the 2nd edition got 1,000 downloads between the first and the second, but it's just me doing promotion. So it's not so much widely known, but I got a lot of people saying thanks because as maintainer or not, it was easy to get starting. That's it.
Thank you very much, Daniele. Are there any questions? Any questions so far? So, where is it that you get the main readers of your book?
I got the many readers with Reddit, that is proprietary, that is a cool part, because there are a lot of people on various subreddit, mainly in the open source one. So I got a lot of people also sending me an English review of the book that I did to other people. So on Reddit, I got the many feedback that I got, it was in Reddit. Not Twitter, Mastodon, whatever, but just on Reddit.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah. It was surprising a lot of people that is here from a lot of different open source projects just on Reddit, because it's very easy to reach people, maintainers, whatever. It's very, very easy. Also to understand the public, your customers again, because we have to think that they are, after all, customers. Also, if they are not paying anything, they are just customers. So you need to take care of the customers, after all.
All right, sure. Okay. Thank you very much. So we close here this track, and we have about 5 minutes till the next one. Thank you. So, we have arrived at the last talk for this morning, and we do welcome Justin W. Flory. He is a technical advisor at the UNICEF Innovation Fund, and Mike Nolan, which is the assistant director at OpenRIT. And they are talking about understanding the evolution of free open source community, because they say family matters. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, and it's a really welcome change to actually be presenting in front of a real room of people instead of just having only the monitor display. So it's really great to be here at SFSCon with all of you. And today we want to have a conversation about family matters, or really understanding our collective free software movement and looking at both how we got to where we are now and a little bit on where we're going. My name is Justin. I work with the UNICEF Office of Innovation as an open source technical advisor, and I'm here with my colleague.
Hi, I'm Mike Nolan. I'm the assistant director of Open at RIT, which is part of the Rochester Institute of Technology.
So for today's talk, we split this into 4 pieces. We're going to talk a little bit about our family lineage, on who we are, looking at authentic participation of how we've showed up for each other, thinking about some of these tough times that we've seen in the last couple of years and how families and movements stick together. And then we have some questions for you to think about what is next for free software. So we'll start from the beginning on our family lineage, or who are we? I'm sure many of you are familiar with these 4 freedoms, and this is really the original where our movement began as we know it today. So free software began in the 1980s, and early proponents of the movement, they unified under these 4 essential freedoms that they believed all users of computers and computer systems should always have. So this was the initial glue that brought us all together and even guides us still today. So who were these proponents of these 4 freedoms? So I'm sure many of you recognize the faces or logos or the penguin on this slide. And this is really pointing out that our movement really began, as we know it today, in the 1980s and the 90s. So who is this family that we know today? The initial founders of the free software movement connected on those shared values, or the four freedoms, that brought them together and unified them under those common beliefs. So many of these founders, they made their careers during an age of incredible growth and hope around all these new digital technologies, and they were also at the forefront of actually changing how this incredibly small community actually operated and produced software. Some examples of this is the founding of the Free Software Foundation in the United States in 1985, the launch of the Linux kernel in 1991, and the launch of the Open Source Initiative in 1998. The initial founders of the free software movement had some commonalities that were especially good at unifying and bringing people together. And I'm sure many of you might be familiar with the arc of challenging printer drivers and some things that were really good at bringing us together, even back then. But this leads us to, where are we going now?
Right. So why did the original free software movement form? You know, these four freedoms were largely created in opposition to the sort of increasingly predatory actions of firms to decrease user autonomy through claiming copyright. This caused a reaction by many of the founders of FOSS to seek autonomy and independence. The four freedoms were this actionable rallying call to users to assert control over the changing environment of the post-hardware bubble of the 70s and 80s. And this movement largely led to the increasing and widespread use of FOSS licensing and organizations that we see today. But how exactly do these early beginnings impact our present-day situation? FOSS has become increasingly popular alongside proprietary systems. However, the nature of software itself has changed. Platforms have shifted the exchange value from software itself onto other digital resources, such as data, insights, and networks. With other social issues alongside these things, such as rising inequality, ecological collapse, political unrest, many are left wondering if we haven't focused enough on the bigger picture of how software potentially perpetuates these issues. And so many people today are not only asking questions about technological autonomy, but also on harm prevention. This, in some ways, still aligns with the principles of the FOSS movement, this loose idea of autonomy and sharing. But we as a community back then didn't really define with whom or how. So what unifies us now? Does open source still play a role? Where is this line drawn? Well, new folks, young and old, are entering the FOSS movement, even today. The unifying principles of autonomy and the spirit of collaboration have a strong draw to all of these people entering our new community. However, the lived experiences of these folks might contrast slightly or even dramatically with longtime drivers or founders of the free and open source software movement. Generations new and old, we still have much in common with our community. But many are facing a difference in ideology stemming from perhaps different socioeconomic conditions. So anyways, this talk is about family, right? And why do we choose this metaphor? Well, family can have different meanings at an individual level. I'm sure many of you have your own conception of what family means and looks like, but what do we mean today when we talk about family? For us, family is a group of people who are bonded together by something greater than just choice, regardless of circumstance. And as I'm sure you know, family members are not exempt from being frustrated with each other. Even though folks within the free and open source software movement have differences, we function in many ways like a family. And our FOSS family shares a common connection that technology should serve people and users first. And really any other beneficiary is kind of coincidence. So sometimes we disagree on how exactly FOSS should serve human beings, but we would like to discuss some ways that we found through research among family dynamics and counseling that folks can better engage with each other. So showing up and engaging authentically within a family, it builds trust in each other, which is integral and able to in being able to communicate and engage. And largely, historically, this is what we've always done in our greater FOSS family. Free and open source communities have a long history of standing and growing in line with each other, largely in favor of same or similar principles. The founding of the GNU project in '83, the creation of the GPL and subsequent licensing of the Linux kernel, the launch of the OSI to evangelize many of these same ideas and values to businesses and other types of organizations. And even beyond all that, we have continued to bring in new people and ideas largely along these same shared values. And more importantly, we stood together in opposition of things that we collectively did not want. Things like predatory technology, dependency on institutions, which we felt did not hold our interests at heart. And historically, we've loosely drawn this line at the four freedoms. And you either wanted these or you didn't. And we collectively gathered behind that. Even organizations like the OSI, they might have not explicitly mentioned the four freedoms, but in other texts that they showed that they were loosely, at least, aligned on these shared values and purposes, mostly. And the challenges that we've seen that we're facing today are what we think are growing pains brought on by the inclusion of a new generation into our movement. Some are entering our family proposing new ideas on how to produce openly but share with the aim of mitigating or preventing harm upon others, such as this ethical source movement, if you've heard of it. These new members of our family are bringing some, let's say, disruptive ideas, which stem from different experiences and conditions that they might have faced. So how do we engage with them? Well, 20 or 30 years ago, we analyzed our own conditions and what we wanted to do about it. But is it time to revisit some of these questions again in the 2020s? What are we actually trying to accomplish as a movement, as a community, as a family? And why? For whom does our collective work benefit? Our new socioeconomic conditions are different in many ways today. New generations have not experienced life before the commodification of software. Instead, in many ways, they've experienced the platformization of services, increasing dependence on private organizations, on top of all these other things we talked about before, the ecological collapse, social unrest. These new conditions mean a potential difference in priorities and a different analysis of the role software plays in creating the world that we are interested in. However, if we look closely at the unifying principles, this opposition to things that we don't want, against predatory technology and dependency on predatory institutions, these things still tie us together despite our differences. This is important because while many of us prefer to attempt various strategies to achieve things that unify us, at the end of the day, we all engage with each other respectfully, knowing that in this cause we are united, even if our preference and methodology isn't. Despite the differences between free software and open source advocates, we see many free software organizations participating in open source conferences and events, such as let's say OSCON or the new Linux Foundation events. And now we see even skeptics who are genuinely and respectfully engaging in movements such as the ethical source movement that seeks to sort of change the way we think about sharing openly, and they're engaging respectfully.
So obviously there's some conflicts in this family, but a little bit of the message that we're trying to talk about here is how we work through these tough times and how strong families can get through that friction and stick together. Today's FOSS family can do that too, and here's some of our ideas on how. So families are intergenerational, and the mission of a family is an everlasting one that goes across generations. It comes from a place of growth and sustenance that is trying to make a better world for that next generation that's coming after. But the reality of raising a family is usually not so simple. To give an example, the founders of the free and open source software movement that I showed on the earlier slides, they set this movement in motion in the beginning, but now we also have different people and different ideas that are coming to the forefront too. But more importantly, we have more in common than we don't. And we can bind together on what is common, not always what makes us different. So if we can put aside for just a moment differences on this license or that license, programming language A or language B. There are common things that can still bring us together today. They may not always be the same, they may not always be identical every time, but even as we approach almost 40 years of free software, we're still here. We're all together here in this room because something brought us together that these topics of free and open source software still matter, even now. So what is it that brings us together today? That brings us back into this common core that we have. There's this human-centered approach in open source above all else, because open source always was and always will be about people. It's not, open source projects aren't usually one people efforts. We have these collective communities that form up around our projects. So we're not looking just at people working inside of an organization or a company, but really looking more at that human individual level. What are those things that we have in common? We aren't really good about talking about those things, and oftentimes this is where those tough times end up coming from. But it's not that our disagreements are unimportant or that they don't matter, but we should regularly check in on those goals and our purposes and our values and be clear on whether we're actually achieving them or not. So here's some questions for you. Why do you like free software? For whom does your work in free software benefit? These are the questions that really matter, and it's important that we remember to center our values instead of only methodology, just like the original founders did of the free software movement almost 40 years ago. Lastly, like I said, we're not always going to be identical every time, or we're not always going to be perfectly aligned, but we are in this together. And being a strong family doesn't mean we need to have the same exact experiences or incentives for why we do what we do, but it does mean that we need to understand that we have to work together collectively, and therefore consider all the experiences when we advocate for what we do together as a community.
So I'm going to go over time by a few seconds. I hope that's okay. This is our last slide. So we were brought together through this shared love of how technology can transform us, and then also how we can transform it. Our love of this unexpectedly took what was really a personal and individual interest, and it built a global community of millions of people. It garnered the interests of some of the world's most powerful institutions, and it created quite the heterogeneous family. And as hopefully we begin to escape from this hole that we've been in for the past 1.5 to 2 years, I would ask all of you that we take a step back and ask ourselves, what is this shared value that we have? And given this new world that we're living in, how do we achieve it? So thank you to our organizers, to our audience for joining us, and of course to my co-speaker, Justin, for joining me in this talk. We would like to open it up to questions if there's time.
Yeah, thank you for your talk. Are there any questions from the audience? So maybe one quick question, since this is the last talk, so we have can a little bit extend. So how do you think, how important are kind of physical conferences like this for the family? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I can take a shot at that. So, I mean, I know, I live abroad from my family, my, nuclear family. And I think being able to see each other in person and engage, people a lot of time talk about the hallway track talk, you just talk with other people and you meet folks. I think it's massively important. And I hope, as things become safer to travel, that we can have more of these. I know I feel very excited to be able to come here and speak to people in person. But I think it's not necessarily the only way that you can connect either. We have increasingly got better at connecting over digital means and allowing formats there. So I think it really, wherever we can engage with each other is always a good place to do so.
All right. So we're all being used to see each other on GitHub and stuff. So, but it's good to see each other in person. All right, thanks. So thank you for this talk. This was the last talk in the community and education track. So we stop here for today. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. All the videos are being recorded, so you find everything on YouTube and you can watch it later. And thanks again. And we close here. So have a good time. See you next year.